Welcome back to another disturbing journey in the southern underworld. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you to please like, comment, subscribe, and share this devilish delight with your horror friends and fam. Engagement is essential, and it helps our little channel grow. Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 horror classic, is a landmark in cinema that redefined the genre. Its story of Norman Bates and his ominous Bates Motel has left an indelible mark on film history. In 1998, Gus Van Sant attempted to recreate this iconic tale with a near-identical remake for a modern audience. This review will compare both films, examining their similarities and differences, and how each captures the essence of fear. The original Psycho is more than just a captivating story. It's a pioneering approach to horror and suspense. The plot revolves around Marion Crane, an office secretary who steals money from her employer and runs away to start afresh. Her journey leads her to the eerie Bates Motel, where she meets the mysterious Norman Bates. The infamous shower scene, along with disturbing revelations about Norman's relationship with his mother, creates an atmosphere of constant terror. The brilliance of Psycho lies in its manipulation of basic fears and mental disorders. Anthony Perkins's portrayal of Norman Bates reveals a complex character whose seemingly normal exterior hides a deeply troubled mind. His alternating personality between himself and his controlling mother offers a terrifying insight into dissociative identity disorder. Hitchcock uses innovative cinematography techniques and sound design to set the film's dark tone. The black and white visuals intensify the creepy ambiance, while Bernard Herrmann's screeching violin score during the shower scene has become synonymous with terror. Psycho significantly changed the horror genre by setting new standards for suspense and psychological depth. Its impact can still be seen in many subsequent films, with Norman Bates being an unforgettable figure in horror cinema. Gus Van Sant's remake is a bold attempt at recreating Hitchcock's original almost shot for shot, while updating it for contemporary times with modern visuals and fresh cast members including Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates and Anne Heche as Marion Crane. One of the main hurdles in Van Sant's remake was to replicate the psychological intensity of the original. Vaughn's portrayal of Norman Bates is quite different from Perkins. His version is more openly disturbing, adding an additional layer to his character's mental disorder. This change reflects broader shifts within the remake, which often chooses more explicit horror over subtle suspense. Van Sant's decision to recreate many of Hitchcock's iconic scenes exactly is both a homage and a risk. The use of color cinematography modernizes the visuals, but also alters the film's atmospheric tone. Despite these challenges, Van Sant introduces some new elements like brief surreal images and more graphic violence that reflect changing standards in horror cinema at that time. The 1998 remake attempts to maintain the original's psychological horror while fitting it into a modern context, reflecting evolving audience expectations. In 1960, revealing that a seemingly normal person could have such severe psychological issues was groundbreaking. By 1998, audiences had seen more varied and explicit depictions of mental illness and horror. The performances in Van Sant's 1998 remake are decent, but I found it difficult not to compare it with its predecessor. I do think Anne Heche did a good job portraying Marion Crane, but in my opinion fell short of Janet Leigh's vulnerability and complexity. Upon its release, Van Sant's Psycho received mixed reactions, with many critics questioning whether a near-identical remake was necessary. However, it provides an interesting study in adapting classic films for modern viewers. The remake highlights Hitchcock's timeless story, while showing the difficulties involved in recreating the psychological depth that made the original so innovative. In the field of film analysis, an interesting comparison arises between two versions of the same story. Both movies explore deep concepts like identity, madness, and humanity's dual nature. However, they express these themes differently, reflecting changes in filmmaking techniques and viewer expectations. Alfred Hitchcock's original film uses a clever mix of hints and implications to create a sense of growing fear. The audience is left to use their imagination to fill in the blanks, showing Hitchcock's trust in his viewers' ability to engage mentally with the film. On the other hand, Gus Van Sant's version stays true to the original script, but opts for more explicit images. This change reflects a trend in horror films toward more direct depictions. Norman Bates is a key character in both stories, representing the unfolding terror. Anthony Perkins's portrayal is subtle. He skillfully shows the complexities of a character whose friendly exterior hides a broken mind. Vince Vaughn's interpretation, while different from Perkins, adds an obvious threat to his role. His performance fits into a late 1990s tendency toward clearer representations of psychological horror. The visual language used by both Psycho versions highlights their differences. The 1960 original stands out for its innovative and restrained use of lighting, camera angles, and sound design that foster an atmosphere filled with unease and suspense. In contrast, Van Sant's 1998 remake uses color cinematography and modern sound design, but often misses capturing the detailed tension that made its predecessor so powerful. The reaction each movie receives is tied closely to their cultural context. In 1960, when Hitchcock released Psycho, it was seen as groundbreaking, a daring dive into psychological terror that stretched cinematic limits. By 1998, audiences had become more at ease with explicit displays of violence and mental health issues. This shift in viewer preference can be seen in how differently each film's elements were executed. Both Psycho versions delve into their characters' mental depths, exploring themes of identity, suppression, and madness. However, the original's subtle approach often results in a more lasting sense of unease. The remake, while staying true to Hitchcock's narrative, fails to capture the same level of psychological intensity and instead opts for a more superficial portrayal of terror. Hitchcock's Psycho has greatly influenced the horror genre. Its mark can be seen in many films that came after it, setting the standard for how psychological horror should be shown. Van Sant's remake, although not as influential as its predecessor, shows Hitchcock's lasting storytelling skill and highlights the difficulties in adapting such a significant work for modern viewers. Comparing these two versions of Psycho, it's clear that while they share a common story structure, their execution and psychological impact vary greatly. Hitchcock's original remains an excellent example of psychological terror. Its influence is still strong over time. Van Sant's version serves as an interesting trial, but emphasizes the difficulties in recreating the magic found in a classic film. The lasting impact of Psycho comes from its ability to tap into universal fears and mental disorders, creating an atmosphere heavy with constant fear. Both versions investigate humanity's inner darkness through their distinct perspectives, frightening reminders of sanity's fragility and madness's ever-present threat. Whether viewed through Hitchcock's innovative perspective or experienced through Van Sant's modern reinterpretation, Psycho continues to be a terrifying investigation into human nature. Its terror is just as powerful today as it was over 6 decades ago. Alfred Hitchcock's 1960 version of Psycho is a horror mystery thriller that is 1 hour and 49 minutes long and is rated R. The Southern Underworld gives it 4.5 bloody knives. Gus Van Sant's 1998 remake is a horror mystery thriller that is 1 hour and 45 minutes long and is rated R. The Southern Underworld gives it 4 bloody knives. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you for watching.